Hi and welcome to another Checiegirl Creations DIY video. Now today I'm going to be making some prompt cards for a friendship journal I made for both my friend and I to work in, and you can see that process in an iCard on the top right hand corner, how I made that. And they're quite small, they're around ATC size, and I've already cut them out of cereal box, and I want to be able to make them so that they kind of like a accordion fold. So I'm going to tape them together with masking tape, and then I'll jelly plate them. So I'm just using this masking tape. It's off-white like the cardboard, and then I'll gesso it afterwards just to make sure that the surface isn't too porous. And I'm just going to rest them next to each other with a bit of space in between, so that when it folds it's not fighting too much. So let's begin. Right, so now you can see it's got an accordion fold to it, and because I taped it with a bit of space, it folds together nice and flat, because you don't want it to be too bulky in the cover. See, so it's nice and small. And I also want something to hold it, so I'm just going to use this because it's nice and thin. So the crease is already here, so I just need to crease it here and then here to come up. Okay, so the cover is ready. I'm not sure how I'm going to want it to close. I may just have it kind of flap over. Maybe have a button or something. So now I'm going to gesso both the cover and the prompt cards. I'm just going to cut this down though. No need to have that flapping over. There. And make sure when you're doing this to use the bone folder, just to make sure, or you can use your ruler, you can use your ruler as well, to just make sure that those creases are nice and really well done. So you want I think what I might do is just put a bit of masking just to make sure that the spine is nice and strong. Now I normally use a palette knife to apply gesso, but I really want to make sure I have a nice even coverage for the first layer, and then I will go over with a palette knife on the second layer. You can see it's covering quite well, but it's going to need a second layer, maybe a third. Right, so now that the first layer is done, I'll turn off the camera and I'll do the second layer and the inside of the cover and the other side of here, though I'm only going to give this one layer because it's already white, but it was just so that the cardboard wasn't as porous. So I'll be back after I've gessoed everything and everything's dry. Right, so everything's gessoed and dry, and while I was just working things out, I figured out that sticking the cards to the cover in the same way that I stuck the cards to each other, so that it can fold inwards and then be all in one. It will all just fold out, and then I can attach it in the same way like I did the other things, and I'll show you that of course when we're all done. So I'm using an 8x10 jelly plate from Jelly Arts. I've used this quite a few times, and I'll put the videos in an iCard in the top right hand corner so that you can see. And I normally have a piece of acetate that I put it on so that it doesn't touch anything porous and hard, because you don't want to dent your jelly plate. Because some people just keep their jelly plates on a piece of glass or a piece of plastic, or in the protective sheets that it comes with. But I don't want to get any paint on the protective sheets, which is why I use this piece of acetate. And I have a specific what do you call this, roller to use for my jelly plate, and I have another one that I use to make sure things stick down on. So this one is always quite messy. And I'm just going to use a selection of acrylic paints, but I don't want it to be too dark because of course I have to put writing on the cards. So the cover doesn't matter how dark it is, but I want it to be quite bright and playful. So I have quite a few acrylics, and I like to use my Checiegirl acrylics and my Crawford and Black acrylics because they're quite runny, and they're, well, I'm not sure about the Checiegirl ones because I got this in a kit, but the Crawford and Black ones aren't too expensive, and I get these at the works. I also use these reef paints as well every now and again. This one's fluorescent pink. And I also use this one, Dale and Rowney Graduate Acrylics. This is cadmium orange hue, and that's quite nice as well. So, and I also have a few stamps, like foam stamps for mark making. These are on rollers. Some more ones in here. And it comes with this, and you're supposed to be able to put the stamp on it and stamp with it, but from quite a lot of use it's become quite loose on this, so they just tend to fall off, so I just use my fingers and stamp with it. And I guess you can use this as well as a stamp. I might try that today to remove some paint. I also have this one as well. You can also use stencils and all sorts of different things, but I just wanted to use some stamps. So first I'm going to have a plain layer. So I'm just going to put a few different paints, colours. And you want to make sure that the colours agree with each other. You don't want to, say, put red and green next to each other because that'll make brown. So I have some yellow, and I want everything to be quite light, so I'll put a bit of white as well. And you don't want to go too slow on your jelly plate because you don't want it to all dry up, but it gives you quite a while to be able to work with everything. And you also don't want too much paint on your jelly plate either, because you don't want it otherwise the paint, it won't look as good. You don't need a lot either to cover the jelly plate. And I'm going to go into different directions just to make sure there's a nice coverage. And I'm using warm colours, because this is a warm yellow, but then this is a cool yellow. And I just have a piece of paper that I'm using just to roll the paint off any excess paint on the roller. And I'm just using a piece of paper to pick up any of the excess paint. And some people clean their jelly plate in between every print, but it all depends on what colour I'm using. So if I'm going to say put a green on here, I don't want it to mix up with the orange and make a brown, but I'm going to put some pink, so that should be okay. But if I'm swapping colour families, then I tend to clean the plate in between. Right, so I've given it a background, and you saw me go over with white just to mute the colours a bit. And now I'm going to let this dry, and I'll clean off my jelly plate because you can see that the paint's already getting a bit crusty on there. And I just clean it off with some water and just give it a wipe. And then I'll be back after everything's dry and clean. Right, so this is pretty much dry, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the foam stamps, and I'm going to have the jelly plate like a stamp pad. So I'm going to put the colours I want, and I'm using coal colours this time, so lots of blues, some purples, and I'm going to stamp with it. And I'm going to focus the stamping mostly on the edges and where the masking tape is, on the folds, so that the middle is not too busy for when I want to put the prompts on. Right, so the camera cut off, so I thought I was recording but I wasn't. So it's all finished jelly plating, and I just attached a piece of yarn so that it can close with some washi tape. And the washi tape is kind of see-through, so you can't really tell it's washi tape. And I just put a bit of double-sided tape and then stuck down the piece of yarn and then put the washi tape on. And now when it closes, you can just wrap it. Just wrap it a few times. I'll just probably chop it about here. So that's the closure, and if you do this, I would recommend even if it does feel like it's dry, just having it open and drying like this, because I find when I jelly plate it takes a while to dry and it gets kind of tacky and it sticks together. So these are the kind of wipe off sheets from jelly plating, and then these can be used for different projects later. And actually the cover was decorated with jelly prints, and the pages are jelly prints as well, and this is jelly plate as well, this envelope. So my plan for the prompts was that there would be 6 and the cards would be double-sided. So if you can see there at the top it would have the number, and underneath it would have like the theme, and then there would be different prompts to go with that theme, and then they would be double-sided. So there's 6 prompt cards, but then you get 12 prompts. But I want this all to dry before I add any lettering. So I'll probably make a part 2 of when I add lettering to this, and I'll just leave this overnight to dry, and then you can join me for that process.